Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly IPLD sync meeting. And we are trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing. Would anyone like to go first?
I'll go first. I moved into a new house and that's about it. So I didn't get any work-related things done, but I did move into this new house, which I'm pretty happy with. Although I did hurt my back pretty bad, so I'm a little out of it. Next up is a person. Eric.
I'll go first while Eric writes, because I know he's probably got a bit to write.
No, I don't need to write. I also am in the state of having precisely none of my picked battles this week be in code, so I just, yep, I'm done.
Okay. Is that it?
Unfortunately, yes. Some other interesting efforts have been made this week, but none are engineering related. I guess maybe I'll shout out that something I would like to think about doing in the next week is maybe try pairing with someone to write some draft specifications that I want a co-brain for. Something that I've had on kind of the back burner is this need that we probably have for what I'm going to call a placeholder name power pathing. Like when we have paths and we want to start talking about, is this path segment going to go in and use a hampt or something versus is it not? Do I need to be able to toggle modes? Do I need to be able to, I don't know, anything else that you can imagine being touched on in that. So I've got some super skeletal thoughts about that I want to explore, but they're not even in a publishable exploration report yet. So yeah, I don't know when, but I'd love to borrow somebody's brain and try drafting together, and maybe that'll get that out faster.
Pick me up whenever you think you have time.
Peter, I've already talked with this about, so you actually don't count. I already have your input.
Well, but we never finished that part, actually. We just talked about it.
Yeah, writing is necessary. But yeah, I would also like to circulate, I don't know, maybe Rod or Wilbur's not here, but I kind of want to.
Time zones make it awkward, but not today. Got the string of meetings.
Not today.
Maybe tomorrow, or yeah.
I found out recently.
Go and look at it if you want, Eric.
Sorry.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm also available too if you'd like.
Okay. I need to figure out which DM handle I can use with you, because our series of bridges makes that non-trivial to see, but we'll take you up on it otherwise. Thanks.
Okay, I'll do some notes then. So it was a bit of a scattered week, and I've been chasing up computer fixing stuff as well, so not highly productive. But I have been running this sequential IPLD verification of the Bitcoin data that I've converted to IPLD, just walking slowly back through the blockchain from the tip to the genesis, just to make sure that everything I've got can be reconstructed now that it's in this big pool. And I did find one problem in that process, which I thought was a problem with the data, and that I'd need to regenerate some of the data, but turns out not to be. There's yet another problem with SegWit and differentiating between SegWit and non-SegWit blocks. And this impacts a very small number. I don't know how many, but a very small number of blocks. And I think with this one, I'm going to have to resort to using block time to do the differentiation. It's not, yeah. it's not the end of the world, but it's not pleasant because block time doesn't exist in the place where you need it. So it's one of these pieces of context you need to carry with you as you're doing this navigation, which is not terrible. It's not, if you had a problem taking context with you while you were navigating, this is a case where that, and then you couldn't differentiate. This is one of those cases where it wouldn't matter so much. It matters if you want to reconstruct the block in perfect condition, to reconstruct the blockchain in like pure binary form, and say this block is these bytes. That's where it matters, and that's, you know, for this kind of data, that use case is not really that alive. So it's not the end of the world. It's just very unfortunate that a blockchain height has to come into the equation. And as Peter was saying earlier today, I think this is going to come into play with other blockchains where height is used as a flag for a number of different switches of protocols and formats and things. And they just, because you just don't store the height on these things, the height is external context. Time is a proxy for height. And in Bitcoin's case, it's not a terrible proxy because there are some validation guarantees about time being within a certain window. I was trying to figure out exactly what that algorithm was, and it's pretty tight. But anyway, that's unfortunate. I started writing a big spec doc for this to describe Bitcoin from a IPLD content addressing perspective. That'll eventually be a pull request against the specs repo. I cleaned up all the code. It's ready to push in most cases. Docs are ready in the different code bases. I just need to give Michael a itemized list of things to be done that are dependencies for this work, because this is also in the middle of the JavaScript multi-formats work that it's not quite resolved yet. So that's not super critical work. It's just sort of lingering at the moment, and I'll get that done maybe this week. So that's me. I think I've got a different week coming up, but I've got to work on some of this Bitcoin stuff in parallel, and then I was going to be diving more deeply into Zcash and do that. So that's me. Anyone else like to give a update or ask questions?
I just want to ask to add one thing to what Rad said for those who didn't see my message. It's not only that the block height is something historic, it's something that will keep reappearing in the future, because for distributed soft forking driven by consensus, this is essentially the only way to agree on something, to say somewhere in the future at height such and such, if the rest of the network agrees, we will start doing X instead. So this will keep coming up even after we're done with the work right now.
I'll also say that like something that I see fairly often is like a blockchain transaction used as like a cheap timestamp on something, and like a verifiable timestamp on something. So this is probably something that's going to come up again and again, and that we should just think like there's some sort of higher level library here that would do a nice job of surfacing this that we don't really have at the codec layer right now, but it's just something to keep in mind.
And I also asked why, but he didn't reply yet, whether Filecoin itself might need to rely on that in the future, which I guess the answer is yes, but yeah.
Which would be unfortunate for Filecoin, because I think they've got a very heavy blockchain. It's very dense and a lot of data being generated in a short amount of time. So it would be a shame to need all of that to be able to discern some of these things. But it'll be interesting to see that response. Anything anyone else would like to talk about? Okay, let's round it up then. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And I am stopping the